Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to the Cloudcast, coming to you live from our massive studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Just me tonight. I think from Aaron. Aaron got sort of busy, was under the weather, and I think the week of hanging out together out at the Google event in San Francisco may have made him want to spend a little less time with me. But anyways, it's all good. Usually I just jump right into the show. We get going with our guest, and I have to ramble a little bit. I have to set this up a little bit because tonight's show is going to be a little bit unique. I think it's a really, really interesting story, very, very interesting guest, but I want to sort of set this up a little bit. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, and obviously if you're from Detroit or you know anything about Detroit, obviously, what we did there was we built automobiles, and everything about the state, everything about the city was really centered around this one industry. You basically couldn't go anywhere and not run into somebody whose parents, their aunts and uncles, multiple generations had worked in the auto industry. And when the auto industry went through some struggles, at least in the United States, which has been the last couple of decades or so, you really started to realize, for various reasons that an entire industry can really get disrupted. And you start to wonder, what happens to those people that have spent their lives, their family has spent their lives around a certain industry that transforms quite a bit. And in some cases, in the auto industry, it was automation and competition from overseas and lots of other things. But this applies to a lot of different industries. And so, I'm always kind of, keen to what happens in that space. And, a few weeks ago, I was reading an article from Wired magazine, and the article said, the next generation of blue collar jobs is going to be software development. It's going to be coding. And it sort of caught my eye because I thought that sounds like a very Silicon Valley thing to say, but what does that really mean? And as I dug through the article, I got a chance to take a look at some of the things that were profiled in there, and very, very excited tonight to have a couple of folks who were highlighted in that article. Justin Hall and Payton May from BitSource in Pikeville, Kentucky. And so, Justin and Payton, welcome to the show. Glad to have you on. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. I'll go first, Payton, if that's all right. This is my first podcast. But,
excellent.
Very excited. So my name is Justin Hall, and I'm president of BitSource. History and technology for me has been, probably in 97, I started taking a look at things like Future Splash and HTML. I wanted to put most of my paintings and pictures on this thing called the web. And so I started to take a deep dive there into technology and understanding how the web worked. I did it mostly as a hobby for a while. This was when I was in Pike County in Eastern Kentucky, like when the web was still kind of infant. I moved to Lexington because really there was no BitSource at that time in Pike County.
Right.
So I left the area and moved to Lexington and started my own business. And I've been working in this industry ever since, just doing web and now apps. So for me, hearing about the opportunity to be able to come back home after listening to Lynn and Rusty talk about, hey, can we do this? Can we teach a coal miner to code? And, one of the things that I said back to them was, well, why would you want to do that? What's the point if you're just going to teach them and then ship them out?
So let's hold on to that thought for a second, because I want to dig into that quite a bit. But Payton, jump in and give us a little bit of your background as well.
So I was formally trained in architecture. That's what my undergrad degree's in. And then I went to the University of Virginia and studied urban and environmental planning and got my master's. But I've always done tech-related things on the side, definitely with architecture, 3D modeling, and lots of 2D design, and did web design on the side, which kind of translated over into this field. And, I remember when my mom got the first sort of bag phone in her car, and she had a real early laptop that had a card making program on it. Right. And so from early on, I was, into computers for sure.
Yeah. If anybody was listening to this, they would go, okay, cool. Brian went out and found, two folks who are in the tech industry, are passionate about the tech industry. But let's talk a little bit about, what you mentioned, Justin, let's talk about Pikeville, Kentucky. Give folks a sense of what is Pikeville, Kentucky. What's the community around that? Is it like Silicon Valley? Is it like the other big tech centers that we know around the world?
So it's nothing like that, at least not yet.
Yeah.
But one of the mainstays of Pikeville, especially in Pike County, is, it's the heart of Appalachia. And so you've got coal mining, you've got a rich history of culture and heritage there, so it's got its beginnings and has gone through pains and all these different industries of progressivism, I guess you could say, that looked at coal mining and looked at manufacturing in a way like that's old and is going away. And so the mountains also represent a lot more, so a lot of ingenuity and grit. That's one of the reasons why we felt like BitSource would be a good success basically there, because the people are used to, working hard, they're dedicated, they're honest, they're loyal. And so we thought, okay, what if we did this? These people that have served this industry for a long, long time and are unique to this area, would they be able to do this kind of work? And how would that set them apart from, say, like Silicon Valley? So I don't know if you've seen recently some of the news articles about Silicon Holler. And so that's really interesting, this take about how Appalachia can transform from a coal industry to a tech sector.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're trying to do in Pikeville, Kentucky, is give birth to an extent to the tech sector.
Well, and that's, I think at the heart of it, as I read about your story and you and I had a chance to talk earlier, and there was a couple of things that were really kind of drew my eye to this situation. One of them is you've got a set of communities that, like you said, it's a rich set of communities. There's long heritages of families and generations of families who've been there. So it's a situation where people aren't just naturally inclined to say, well, we went through some tough times or some things changed, let's just move away, right? It's people that want to be there, that have a pride in being there. The other thing that really jumped out at me, in reading, especially reading the Wired article and kind of learning more about you guys, there's a really interesting statement from your founder, a gentleman named Rusty Justice, and he said, we co-founded BitSource because we wanted to help retrain coal miners as programmers. And he said, miners, it turns out, are accustomed to really deep focus, team play, working on complex engineering technologies. And they're really, their coal miners are technology workers who get dirty. And to me, it was really interesting, but it very much speaks to this idea that, to be successful in this space, you don't necessarily have to have fancy computer science degree. You don't have to have, studied in Silicon Valley. You just need to be, curious. You need to be, able to think through complex problems. I mean, talk about just the mindset that you guys have gone through of asking people who, were coal miners. I mean, literally coal miners, and teaching them, how do you start making computers do interesting things? Sure.
Payton, I'll start out and then you can cap this if that's all right. We've been asked this question a few times. One of the things that we did early on starting out is we wanted to be able to assess the 950 applicants that applied for the 10 positions or 11 positions that we had open when we first started. Out of 950 people, we basically got a pool of about 60 that we felt like we could take to the next level in testing. And so we tested them based on their thinking, their behavior, because some people just can't sit in a chair all day and do this kind of work for 8 hours.
Right.
And then also just their ability to, to work through logic and things like that. So from that group, we tested out, we got a pretty good group, we felt like, and then we started to go into a little bit more in depth about how they would perform. And so that's how we actually picked the 11. And we started out with 11. And then on the first day, which is almost now entering our 2-year anniversary, we had one person that didn't show up, and we contacted them, and they said, I really just don't think I can do this.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we knew that we had a real challenge ahead of us. It wasn't just, can you do a knowledge transfer? Can you tune a tank, or something like that, with a manual? This was, we had to have them see themselves as doing something different.
Yeah.
And Rusty calls this reimagination training. We wanted them to see that they were sort of like, the astronauts in the Mercury 7, these pioneers that are going to be doing something that nobody else has done before.
And it's just an unbelievably uncomfortable position there early on, when you just feel like I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can keep up. I don't know if whatever that uncomfortableness is a hard thing to get over.
Yeah, we had two sayings early on that we started with. Rusty introduced them on day one as coal miners, and I immediately went right after him to talk to the group, and I said, "You're problem solvers from now on." We had two sayings. One of those was, "Discomfort is a desired state."
Yeah,
that's how you learn. And then the other one was, "We're going to fail fast, we're going to fail often, and we're going to fail forward." And so through that, they went and embarked on a 22-week apprenticeship. And we basically learned everything in the stack that you need, but we also learned a lot of things that helped us learn and helped us right away, understand how this business worked. We're an agile development team, so we taught things like agile development and how that would work. So the first day they did a stand-up, and they took on their first story. If you're smart in agile development, and their first story was, as a BitSource employee, I need to learn how to code. And so that set the standard and set how we work, that we're always going to be learning.
Yeah.
And we even had our sprints tailored so that, the first week of the sprint was getting smart on something. In the beginning, it was just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And then once we learned that stack, we moved up. And that was the next part of the sprint was to perform. We actually didn't have very many quizzes or tests or anything like that a normal school would have. It was, can you show that you can do this, that you understand it, and can you perform it?
Right. Now I want to step back for a second. So out of the first 60 candidates, the ones that you identified as having the right, what you believed was going to be the ability to think through problems and solve problems, like how many of them would say, or would you say, had like any kind of computer experience? Not I've been on the internet, or I used AOL at the time, or whatever, but just like any sense of like, I've made a computer do something? Or was it literally all of them basically starting from scratch?
Payton, what do you think about that?
There's definitely a variety of computer skills. Like some of the people that we have working here now have gone through some technical training through school, doing network admin type stuff. And then, some mostly said they just used a cell phone and maybe like Facebook. Okay. So it was a whole different range.
No one had any coding skills though.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So that had to be, I mean, for them, it had to be scary, because you're introducing to this new world, how you're going to measure them everything's unknown. But for you guys starting a business, that had to be pretty scary too, because it's not like you were in the education business per se. You were trying to get projects and technical work, consulting, design, building websites. Like, walk through kind of your end of the going home every night those first 22 weeks about like, what are we doing? Are we sure we can pull this off?
That's a great insight. We haven't had anybody really ask us that question before. That's good. So early on, Garland kind of says, he's one of our developers. Garland says that I didn't really know anybody's name for the first 3 or 4 weeks when we started, because I was so focused. He said it was like trying to drink water from a fire hose. Yeah. But they had motivation, and he says it often. He said it was motivation by starvation. We didn't have a job. We were coming out of unemployment. We were looking at things like moving away and losing everything. Yeah. And so when you think about that, learning how to code is not as big. They took that. They used that as fuel. and they moved forward. And one of the basis of how we did that was through a scrum, that everybody just locked arms and grabbed and went forward. Yeah. So if somebody got smart in something, they were able, through our cross-functionality of the team that we had been emphasizing, and Payton and I just talked about, that we were going to, be able to pull each other forward here. That if somebody succeeded, then the person that was behind, we're going to move them forward too.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I mean, that's fantastic. I think, a lot of people nowadays will use, they'll use their local teams. They'll find, people on social media and different places to sort of help them get through that. But that's, when I think about, sort of all the things you guys went through, I mean, you hit on a lot of the really basic, just kind of human needs, right? I have to feel like it's okay to fail. I have to feel like I'm part of a team. You were smart to not associate them with where they thought they were, like you said, coal miners, but you were associating them with, the thing they had to adjust. And it's like you said, it wasn't an adjustment. This was, literally, close to being a life and death sort of thing. I mean, it's really, at the most basic level, it's really smart that you guys figured out those were the things to focus on and not, make sure that was established before you got into whatever, sort of technical mumbo jumbo you had to get into later as you went along. What did you guys, as you were doing this, and I keep asking these questions somewhat at a basic level, because quite honestly, we have a ton of listeners who are, they're somewhere in the tech industry, they're considering something else. In a lot of cases, they, like Payton said, they may have had a little bit of like network administration background and they want to get into development. Were you just using sort of, standard tools and trainings that were available on the internet? What was the structure for your learning? Was it, sort of coursework that was available? Was it just you guys took, one of you took an experience you had and tried to teach it to everybody else? What was the curriculum, if you will? Well,
they say that necessity is the mother of invention. So when I was self-taught, I taught myself how to program. I'm actually an artist.
Yeah.
That's what I've got a degree in. But again, I wanted to see this thing called the web and see if I could put my pictures on the web.
Yeah.
For me, when I learned and went through this, there was no Google. There wasn't anything. There was WebMonkey. And there were books at the library, and a lot of stuff on Perl and CGI, PHP had just come out. These new technologies were just starting to rise up. RSS hadn't been invented yet, those kind of things. And so I kind of looked back and said it was one of those things where an older gentleman told me one time, he said, if you want to go somewhere, go down the road and look at people that are coming on the way back and ask them what you should do.
Yeah.
And so I took that same approach, but I flip-flopped it. I said, okay, I'm the one coming back, so here's what you should be aware of. And I said, if someone had taught me this is the way I would have wanted taught.
Right.
And there's, it wasn't very conventional in the sense that there was a classroom and there's tests and all that. It's a shop, basically.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah. I mean, your guys' office, and there's pictures on your website. I mean, your office looks like, a modern development shop. There's no offices. It's lots of open space and people, sitting next to their colleagues writing code. And you're right. It's not a classroom. It's a shop. I mean, you guys are in business to find technical projects and work on them.
Yeah. Payton, What do you think? I want to hear your take on this too, because we've talked about it, and he's got a little bit of a.
I mean, specifically, we use Lynda a lot, and then we use Pivotal Tracker to track the training. So we were using Agile, methodology to even go through training to sort of instill the stand-ups and the development nature into the learning process.
Yeah.
And then, as information was absorbed and kind of like built upon, then there were projects that were worked on where people got to, show their abilities with HTML and CSS, and then start using JavaScript and some, more back-end kind of programmatic languages to build some, functioning prototypes of different little applications. So it was Yeah, I don't know. That's sort of how the learning environment was.
Now, Payton also went through it too. And Payton, I want you to talk a little bit about that, because when you came into it, UX and UI and all those kind of things were still a little bit new to you. So what was your experience like?
So I had mostly just used Adobe Muse before, and then all of my previous background, like I said before, was in 3D modeling and then kind of just like 2D design and layout, which I didn't have so much of a formal video series. I did some Lynda, but me and you were, working on projects while they were training. So I was kind of getting a firsthand, experience.
Yeah. Payton, I noticed that I've worked with designers before, and I knew that he had it. He just needed the knowledge and the playing time.
Right. Yeah.
So, and that was the rest of the group. They just needed playing time. They needed to be able to learn these things, and then, learn the basic level, the basic stack of the technology stack. And then, as Payton said, as they absorbed things, we moved up the stack. Yeah. And we got more complex. We started using things like Drupal. So we've now worked on almost 30 projects. Is that right, Payton? Somewhere around there?
Wow.
Yeah, and most of those were Drupal based, and then also we work in Xamarin for any of the app development, which is now C#. So we're doing object-oriented C#, and then also we're into Unity. So it was a far cry from I can send email and I occasionally do Facebook.
Yeah, no, that's outstanding, and given the size of the group and how long you've been doing it, it's tremendous. So let me ask you this: so when you and I spoke earlier, you talked about this project that you're working on, this sort of very, very important project. Are we still okay to talk about that?
Yeah, actually, there's been some advancement in that I can actually talk a little bit about too.
Okay, so set this up for folks, because as what we've talked about so far has been very, 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 very interesting, right? We're using technology to help bring up a segment of a community, give people employment, obviously do some things for the community, websites, mobile apps, and so forth. But you told me about this bigger project that you're working on. Give folks the basics of what this is, because for me personally, it's an area that I've been impacted by within my own family, but it's something that's very important for the rest of the country as well. So give folks a sense of what this project is.
Sure. So we are a SOAR inspired company. SOAR is meaning shaping our Appalachian region. So we feel like we were forged from the SOAR initiative, and what that means is that we're solving our own problems within the region. The loss of the coal jobs, the loss of the industry. We've got to pivot and adjust. And how did we do that? We're going to do that one way by establishing a tech sector and see if we can teach a coal miner to code. So that's been done. Yep. And now what are the other things that SOAR wants to move forward? One of those is, health and wellness. So we started down a path that was led by SOAR with a hackathon that was co-sponsored by MIT. Payton, do you want to? You do a better job introducing this. I want to send this to you.
Okay, so I headed down to the MIT challenge, and before I went, we had sort of discussed what our research sort of trajectory would be in the competition or hackathon, and it was to create a naloxone delivery system, which is basically like an application that sort of acts like Uber, and someone who's experienced an overdose, someone who witnesses that, can send an alert out, and someone with this life-saving antidote can then respond and come to this person's aid. And so I worked with a pharmacist and then a drug counselor, and we developed, our initial prototype, did a presentation, got second place, and then we came back, and there was a federal competition out that was the same challenge: create an application that can increase the naloxone delivery time. And so we pushed that forward, used Xamarin to actually build a functioning prototype, and then submitted that as well. And then you can take it from there, I guess.
Yeah. So before you jump ahead, so give folks a sense that aren't chemistry majors. What is naloxone, and what is it the sort of anecdote for?
So whenever you have an opiate overdose, the opiates are attached to like a receptor on the brain, and then I guess it can start to slow down some of your like natural functions, like your lungs working and your heart working, and then eventually, your lungs would shut down. You wouldn't be able to breathe anymore. So what this thing does is it goes and attaches to that receptor and knocks off the opiate, and then you're just immediately kind of like alert and back to life again.
Okay, so this is going to directly impact this huge opiate meth epidemic that's all over the place. It's it's in Appalachia, it's in the suburbs. So let's talk. I want to understand this a little bit. So somebody is on opiates, or they're taking opiates. They take too much, which is unfortunately a really common occurrence. Somebody who's with them, or they're at the fast food place or wherever they might be, that they see this. They launch this app, and then where like we all know Uber. You open the app, it finds ride sharing for you. What is the app trying to find?
Yeah, it's trying to find people who have naloxone on them. So each state has different laws, but in some states, anyone can be trained on how to administer naloxone, and then they can get a prescription for it, buy it from a pharmacist, and then carry it on their person.
Okay.
Some states, they can only be first responders. So in a place like Eastern Kentucky, where it's really rural and, cities are maybe close together, but the road networks are really, curvy and hard to navigate, it can increase response time from your emergency systems.
Okay.
And there's also the thought that, you just mentioned something that a lot of people have a belief of, is that the overdose is by taking too much. And there could also be a situation where the drug of choice is tainted.
Oh, okay, sure, absolutely.
Okay, so they're used to taking a certain amount, and then next thing you know, it's an overdose, or they have been trying to quit, trying to stop, trying to refrain, and then they have a relapse.
Right.
Yeah, and that triggers it. So what this app is not just for the person that's overdosing. This is for the family member, or the concerned citizen, that if they witness it, if they're a part of it, they see it, they can submit it anonymously, this request. And it's a real simple, easy request that you can put in just some bare minimum information, and then it creates, just like Uber saying, hey, I need a ride. And so then the responder, which is the other part of the app, would be listening. And if it's in a vicinity, then you would be alerted as to that overdose.
Okay. And
you would be able to click the overdose, view the information on it, and accept the request to go take the naloxone that you have to that location.
So first and foremost, I love the idea. Like I said, having been impacted by this, without getting into all the details, like something like this would have saved lives, which is it is saving lives. So give us a sense of like, where is the application? Where is the app at this point? Is it is it regional? Is it something somebody could go download off the iTunes App Store, or like kind of where are you guys in the I don't know what to call it, sort of productizing of this thing, or bringing it to market? Because it has so much sort of goodness around it. Where are you guys at with it?
Sure. Well, we're still in the early stages. We've got a proof of concept. We've demoed it several times, actually demonstrated how it works and the data that it stores in the cloud, where it stores the geolocation, it stores all the information, and how it stores at each step a ping, if you will, to the system that once the responder has accepted the information and has accepted the request, where they are in the process, all the way leading up to when they actually do the administering of the naloxone. So we've proven that, we've got that, and we can show it, we can demo that. where we are with deploying it and marketing it is still really early.
Yeah.
We've talked with several different people that are interested that, see, like you see, there's a potential here. We've even talked with boots on the ground type people that say, like EMS and early responders and firefighters that are, this would help a lot. And for different reasons.
Oh, sure.
For varying reasons. So we're trying to find out the best position to be able to enter the market. When we do, it will definitely be a free download for people. But we've got to have coverage. And like Payton said, and he alluded to, there's states. All the states have different laws. Yeah, absolutely. And so there's still some challenges there that we've got to overcome that aren't tech challenges. Right.
No, absolutely. And it's. I think the traditional Silicon Valley has this sort of joke that we talk about. The popular apps that they make are typically a replacement for something your mom used to do for you. So get groceries, transport you. Those you guys are taking a really different approach to it, which is it goes back to your heritage of how you started the company. It was you're trying to improve the community, you're trying to improve the region, you're trying to make people's lives, pick them up from the ground up. And it's very, very cool. I will say this, we can talk about this offline. We can put stuff in the show notes and stuff. I suspect, given our audience, you may have some people that reach out to you and go, I would love to, help and get involved. And I'll probably ask you at the end of the show, like, is there something that our community can help you guys with, not getting in your way, not trying to do whatever, but there's some folks I think who do a lot of interesting work on distributed systems and stuff that might be able to help you accelerate this if that's something that we could interest you. But let's not get bogged down in that. Let's talk for a second though. So this is obviously a different type of application from some of the things that you do day in, day out, just building a mobile app or building a web page or something. I mean, when you start to think about, using the cloud, building a distributed types of application that, in theory, if this thing were to roll out on a large basis, like, the architectural considerations are very, very large. Like, how do you go, have you started thinking about how to move beyond prototype to, what a larger scale architecture looks like yet?
We've given it some thought, definitely, on how we would have to scale up and it's definitely a challenge we want to have because then that means we're being useful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is relevant. So, if that's how it works out, if we get 1 million downloads on day one or whatever because of concerned people that want to be able to help their loved ones, then hopefully that will catapult us or push us up to where we're facing those challenges and trying to solve those problems. So that'd be a great thing. And help from the community. I mean, we are an open source development company, so we know what an open source community can do. They basically help build BitSource in some way, with all the work that has been done in the open source community. So, it'd be a good challenge for us to tackle.
Absolutely. Well, let me ask you one last question. And again, thank you so much for the time and telling your story. When we were talking earlier, and I think I've seen it maybe on the website as well, you said, there's another media company wanting to come talk to us. Talk a little bit about HBO. Apparently, is it HBO or Showtime had come out and filmed some things with you guys? What's the story behind that?
Yeah, Rusty kind of frames this right. He said, "We're the coal miners that code are the new Jamaican bobsled team."
That's great,
and it is true. But I think what we're finding out now is that we really just touched the surface on something a little bit bigger, we've been approached by several different people, several companies. Like I said, MIT. We've been talking to. We've talked with Google. We've talked with, of course, Red Hat. We've talked with several media companies that want to cover us because of not just the social good kind of part of the story, but also there's something here about blue collar tech and rural onshoring and those kind of things where we're training the workforce to do things that have never been done before. And so, it's been picked up by a lot of people, HBO, NBC. We've been in Fast Company and
Fortune.
What else, Payton? Fortune and CNN. So we've been covered by a lot. The one thing I will say is, thank goodness, a story about Eastern Kentucky is a good story.
Absolutely.
And so that's one of the biggest things that I think that can come from this is it's a little bit of a turning of the page, if you will, about the story of Appalachia.
Yeah, no, guys, I think it's awesome. I know a little bit about Pikeville because a close high school friend of mine used to be a manager in one of the factories that was in the town. I think it was the Kellogg's factory, and so I've heard some of the stories of the people. I know they're good people. I'll just say this. I've known you guys now for all of an hour. It's great what you're doing. You should be extremely proud of yourself. I know it's a humble set of people but just the foundation of what you guys are trying to do, you should be extremely proud of yourself. And I hope that, what you're working on continues to grow and it has an opportunity to spread and become the next big industry. Silicon Hollow is awesome. I hope folks want to learn more about it. I hope that you get a chance to work with some people. And thank you so much for being on. For anybody that wants to learn more without inundating you guys, just what's a good place to learn more about BitSource? Where's the website? Where's your Twitter feed? Where might you be out and about that somebody could pick your brain or bring a project your way?
Sure. Oh, that's great. BitSourceKY.com. And then we're also on Twitter, Facebook, BitSourceKY, and we're on LinkedIn as well. If you send us a request and you want to come by and tour the facility or something, we'd love to have you down, Brian. Come to our facility, the Coke Building there on Hambly Boulevard, and just kind of see what we've got. You can. Rusty calls those mind tours. They're cold people, so they understand that people want to come by and see, the product that's being delivered. And we get a hold of us any way that you can nowadays in this new tech environment. But also feel free to pick up the phone and call us.
Excellent. Well, guys, thank you so much for the time tonight. Really appreciate it. And folks, I told you the Tonight Show is going to be a little bit different. We're constantly talking about being technically curious, trying to improve your skills. And people worry about, hey, can I hop from one tech job to another? If the folks at BitSource don't inspire you that you can go out and do some of these things, I don't know what does. So for Rusty and for Payton, thank you so much for your time tonight. And Aaron will be back on the next show. And folks, we will talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to The Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.